California podcast. My name is Linda Brown, and I am the host of Healthy California, where my goal is to help educate you on your daily choices so we all can become healthy. I believe you, your family, your neighbor, and your community are all looking for better ways and simple ways to return to being healthy. Many of you have health issues or have family that's going through tough times that seemingly have no answers. It's frustrating. There are questions about health, environment, foods, exercise, and lifestyle, and it can be all overwhelming. And who do you believe? And where's the science behind it? This podcast will unravel the mystery behind being unhealthy and talk about little things that we can do in our lives to make a positive change in our health from all angles. So to be healthy, we need to have physical health, mental health, environmental health, financial and social health, and of course, spiritual health. Let's answer some of these questions to get healthy. What good is just listening to a podcast? I will give you resources as well, ways to take steps and make positive changes in your life to becoming healthy. This is a journey, not an assignment, so be kind to yourself. Hello, California. Welcome back. Thank you for joining me. This week, we are talking about gut health. Why are we talking about gut health? I feel like gut health has been over-talked about, yet here we are still having gut problems. So let's figure out why gut health is so important. What is gut health? What do I mean when I say gut health? And the microbiome. Well, the microbiome is our gut, and we want that to be healthy. Gut health is the function and balance of the microbiome and of the digestive organs and the intestinal lining, mostly the colon. The gut microbiome has over 100 trillion microbes, and they consist of bacteria, viruses, and fungi. And a dysbiosis just means an imbalance in that microbiome. So microbiome are microbes. Those microbes are bacteria, viruses, and fungi. So yes, we have bacteria, viruses, and fungi in our digestive system that is supposed to be there. And there is a very fine balance that keeps our body healthy. So we need it. Well, how do things get into our body to disrupt that microbiome? How do things get into our body in general? They get in through breathing, so air, in through our nose, into our lungs, in through our mouth. They get into our body through our mouth in the form of eating and drinking. And they get into our body through our skins and our mucous membranes. So our mucous membranes, what are our mucous membranes? We have our skins. We know our skin has a surface on there that doesn't allow things through, right? Our skin is actually protective, but things do get absorbed through our skin the same way things get eliminated through our skin. Our skin is an elimination organ. The linings also include the mucous membranes. Where do we have mucous membranes? Any orifice that is exposed to the outside world is a mucous membrane. So we have a mucous membrane in our nose. Our eye has a membrane on it, mucous membrane. Even our ears, our vaginal canal, our urinary system, our urethra has a mucous membrane. And our anus, everything exposed to the outside world has a mucous membrane. And that mucous membrane is protective. Let's say our eye. Our eye has a mucous membrane and also has a natural antibiotic quality to it. There is an antimicrobial that our eye makes that keeps our eyes healthy and free from microbes getting in there. Our skin, mucous membranes all have a protective quality to them. And that involves having a microbiome on them and also having a certain pH that is going to help keep bugs away. So we do have a microbiome on our mucous membranes, on our skin. Microbes, bad microbes, get into our body through the air we breathe, through what we eat and drink, and through our mucous membranes. So let's talk about that a little bit more. When we think about eating something, like things that enter our body through our diet, we have a protective way of keeping ourselves healthy. So we eat food. We have enzymes in our mouth that start to break our food down. The enzymes also start to protect us against those microbes. Then we swallow our food. It gets into our stomach. Our stomach has stomach acid, very strong stomach acid. And that stomach acid also breaks down food, proteins, and the acid kills microbes. That's one of the things the stomach acid does, and that is one of the reasons why it is so strong, so acidic. What if the microbe entering our body gets through the stomach and gets into our digestive system, more in our intestines? Same thing, we have enzymes in our intestines that protect us from microbes. And we have a lymph system that is very closely associated with our gut. And our lymph system is our immune system highway. That is another protective barrier. Let's say we have a microbe that's made it through our mouth, all the enzymes there. It's made it through our stomach, all the acid there. And it is now in our intestines. And it's looking to get into our body. But we have a lymph system that will fight it off. Now, this is everything in a perfect world if our body was completely healthy. That's the key point here, is if our body is completely healthy. Why is this important? Why do we need to know about our gut microbiome? Well, our immune system, 70% of our immune system is in our gut. Think about that, our stomach, our gut. 70% of our immune system is in our gut. And part of that is because we consume things, we eat things, and we have a stomach that will fight it all off. When we eat root vegetables right out of the ground, we didn't always have a nice clean sink to wash our vegetables off in. We would dust it off and then we would eat it. And so we have a way of protecting ourselves from those microbes. So our immune system, 70% of our immune system is in our gut. What else does our gut do? Nutrient absorption. Think about food entering our mouth. We have what is called the alimentary canal. It's this canal that goes from mouth to anus, and it's a tube. It consists of our mouth, our esophagus, our stomach, our intestines, and our colon. It's this big long tube. Food that is in our canal, that alimentary canal, is not actually in our body until it has been broken down and digested into our bloodstream. That tube is still the outside world. Whatever is in that tube goes right through your mouth and out your anus. That is still considered the outside world. Once it is broken down into little tiny bits and pieces, small enough to be absorbed into the bloodstream, it is then considered in our body. Our gut does all that. It absorbs. It breaks it down and absorbs so that it gets into our body. So we can grow and have energy and do all the things that nutrition is supposed to do for us. What else does our gut do? It's our mood regulator. Our gut produces serotonin and dopamine. 80 to 90% of our serotonin is made in our gut. When they say that serotonin doesn't cross the blood-brain barrier, which means it doesn't actually affect our brain, but then why is 90% of it made in our gut? One of the reasons is because it helps with our immune system. So our stomach is directly connected to our central nervous system, directly affected to our central nervous system. And where does our central nervous system go? It's our brain. Our central nervous system is the central part of our nervous system, and that is our brain. And then everything that leaves our spine is our peripheral nerves. Why else is our gut important? Our gut is also part of our metabolism and our weight control. We need food to keep us healthy, to give us energy, and to maintain our weight. There is a large connection between chronic disease and an unhealthy gut. We know that chronic disease is created by inflammation, and we know that inflammation is the cause of most, if not all, chronic disease. And inflammation, we've talked about inflammation before. How would our body get inflamed? Our body gets inflamed by what we put into it, which then through our food. Of course, and bad water as well, or what we breathe, what we put on our skin. But in general, if a large amount of what gets into our body is through what we consume, then we have to consume healthy things to keep our gut healthy so that we don't get inflamed, so then we don't have chronic disease. There's also a huge connection between poor gut health and autoimmunity. That just means our immune system is fighting us, it's fighting against us. Autoimmune disease can start inflammation in the gut. The gut really is responsible for most diseases. That's where inflammation starts. For the most part, inflammation starts in the gut. There's a large connection between unhealthy gut and brain fog. And here's something that's interesting. There's growing research on neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. I talked about Alzheimer's last week. Alzheimer's disease, researchers are calling it a type 3 diabetes because it acts like diabetes, but of the brain. If you think about it, diabetes is uncontrolled blood sugar, uncontrolled insulin in our body. But why then would sugar only affect our body and not our brain, our nervous system? Of course it does. Alzheimer's is being considered a type 3 diabetes, which means it's controllable. If it's a diabetes, it's controllable. It can be. So, of course, there's always a genetic predisposition to something. But if you have Alzheimer's or a family history of Alzheimer's, you can start controlling that now. And you would control it the same way you would control diabetes. You got to cut that sugar out. Why are there other reasons of keeping your gut healthy? We need a healthy gut because we need a healthy intestinal barrier. There is a very thin lining between what is inside our intestines and what is inside our body. Just a single layer of cells between the inside and the outside world in our gut. A very small layer. And that needs to be healthy. Otherwise, we have what's called leaky gut. Leaky gut is intestinal permeability, which means there's holes. There's holes in the wall. If you think about a brick wall is very strong, keeps things in, keeps things out. But what if all the grout between the brick had holes in it? Air is going to come through, bugs are going to come through, critters are going to come through, heat is lost or cold air comes in. It's not very healthy. In our gut, that's what leaky gut is. The proteins that hold each cell together, it's a very tight junction. And when we have an unhealthy gut, those junctions will become very loose and things can get through. They can get through that layer. And we need to have a healthy gut so that we don't have leaky gut. And what leaks in is microbes and undigested foods and toxins, all the things that our gut normally keeps out. It's like letting all the cold air into a holy brick wall or letting all the critters in that aren't supposed to be. It's just like that. Why else do we need a healthy gut? Because your gut is very finely balanced between good bacteria and bad bacteria. If you think about a forest with all diversity of plants in this forest, the forest still needs weeds, right? The weeds, we typically think of weeds as not being good, but they serve a purpose. In our gut, we have good bacteria and bad bacteria. And for the most part, the good bacteria is there, healthy, and it's keeping the bad bacteria at bay. But the bad bacteria in the intestines, what's going to grow is what you feed it. So if you feed the bad bacteria will grow and overtake the good bacteria. If you wipe out the good bacteria, like antibiotics, then all the bad bacteria will take over. And then you're going to have things like leaky gut. You're going to be more prone to all sorts of diseases, inflammation, and all the disease that comes along with inflammation. So it's really, really important that we have a healthy gut microbiome. What harms the gut? What is it that's going to harm our gut? Well, we just talked about, I'll go through a list of these and then we'll talk about it separately. So poor diet, gluten, parasites, microbes, and bugs from like food and water, antibiotic use, stress, sleep deprivation, environmental toxins and endocrine disruptors, and glyphosate, and a sedentary lifestyle. Just being sedentary is harmful to your gut. Let's go over those one at a time. Poor diet, sugar, processed foods, and alcohol. Sugar feeds the bad bacteria. That's why, like SIBO, if you know what SIBO is, stands for small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. SIFO, SIFO, stands for small intestinal fungal overgrowth. And when we have an overgrowth of the bad bacteria or fungus, we're prone to sickness, lots of different types of sickness. And we get cravings because our bad bacteria wants sugar, it feeds off of sugar. So we start getting cravings like sugar. Having really bad sugar cravings feeds the bad bacteria, but it also makes us crave more sugar. And it's really not us and our willpower, it's the fact that our bugs are really making a craving for sugar. And our intestines, our gut, is directly connected to our brain through our vagus nerve. So our gut is sending all sorts of messages to our vagus nerve saying, I want sugar, I want sugar, I want sugar. And so we give it sugar. And sugar is not good. So that's one thing that harms the gut, is just having a sugar diet. You're feeding those bad microbes, and then those bad microbes have a strong communication system with your brain saying, give us more sugar. And Proverbs 25:27 reminds us even good things like honey require moderation. And and alcohol is also a sugar. Processed food, all of those are bad for your diet and are leading also to a leaky gut. And then gluten. Why is gluten bad for us? And gluten is the kind of the big thing, right? Everything is gluten-free, gluten-free. There is a high correlation between gluten and leaky gut because gluten has a protein that attracts another protein called zonulin. Zonulin weakens our proteins that keep our tight junctions between each cell. So when we eat gluten, we get loose cellular junctions. There's not the tight junctions. And then it's that leaky brick wall where things are getting in and getting out. And that's what gluten does. A lot of people think that, well, I can have pasta because it doesn't upset my stomach. And that's not actually true. When you eat gluten, you don't feel an upset stomach. You actually are just breaking down your intestinal barriers, and then over time, you're getting sick. So it's not that you are not feeling well then, it's that you are making yourself sick by increasing inflammation by eating gluten. And what else harms the gut? Parasites, microbes, bugs. Well, we have all that in our stomach, so why is that a big deal? Well, parasites and microbes and bugs, we're talking about the bad microbes, the bad bugs. That's why you just don't drink water straight from a stream that runs through a pasture. That's kind of nasty because it's going to have all sorts of parasites in there. And parasites are very destructive. If you've traveled in the past through any country really and gotten sick by the water, there's a high likeliness that you still have that parasite in your body and it's causing destruction. Parasites don't just go away on their own. You have to do certain things to get rid of the parasites. And you could have a parasite in your body for years and years, and you're getting sick and you don't know why, and you're taking antibiotics and it's not touching it. And it could just be from your travels that you did years ago. What else harms the gut? Antibiotics. Antibiotics kills bacteria. That's the purpose of it. It's an antibacterial. And we take antibiotics to kill off the bad bacteria. But in our gut, it kills off all the bacteria, good and bad. It kills off everything. It's like a forest fire. It just destroys everything. And then what's going to grow back? It's going to be the bad bacteria. And that's leading us down the road to inflammation. So antibiotics are very destructive. If you've had antibiotics or if you have taken multiple rounds of antibiotics, then you have to rebuild that gut flora. You have to rebuild your microbiome. Even if this was a long time ago, the gut microbiome doesn't just build itself. You have to be very intentional about it. Antibiotic use is very destructive. What else harms the gut? Stress. We've talked about stress being very inflammatory to the body. When you are stressed, your rest and digest turns off, so you don't digest. And that means that you aren't digesting your food. And if you have leaky gut and you have undigested food, you're getting these large food particles going into your blood system. The body doesn't know what to do with it, so it attacks it like something harmful because it hasn't been broken down into its small little particles. So yes, stress can cause an unhealthy gut, which then leads to inflammation. And sleep deprivation. Again, sleep deprivation, you need to have sleep for so many things, but sleep can help your gut because your body gets into that rest and digest state. You're able to digest your food. If you don't sleep, you're not healing. And then you're not healing that gut either, right? What else? Environmental toxins and endocrine disruptors. So environmental toxin and endocrine disruptors can be from things other than food. It can be from the plastic in the water that you drink out of that plastic water bottle. It can be from the toxins in the fertilizers that were used for your vegetables, the insecticides that were sprayed. Glyphosate is very toxic. Okay, so glyphosate is Roundup, and it's used everywhere. It is used everywhere across the world. But if you think about California, we're healthy California. The Central Valley here in California produces a large portion of agriculture to feed the world. And we have it in our crops. And the CDC did this test on 2,300 people, and 80% of them had glyphosate. What's the big deal? It's producing food and it's making our crops be more productive. However, it's very carcinogenic, which means it's going to cause cancer. It's an endocrine disruptor, which is, we talked about endocrines are hormones. We don't want to disrupt our hormones. It causes liver and kidney damage because the liver and the kidneys are the biggest filters in our body. And it is a gut microbiome disruptor. It's going to ruin our gut microbiome because it's an insecticide. It kills things. That's what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to kill things. Well, it's doing that, and it's doing a very good job of that in us. It has neurotoxic qualities, which means it's going to affect your nerves. So you can do research on glyphosate. You can get tested for glyphosate. They have a good test for that. If you are getting sick and you're eating organic and you think that you don't know why you're getting sick, you can get tested for glyphosate. I can test you for glyphosate. Just let me know. I have access to a lot of different labs, and glyphosate is one of those. And then the last thing that harms the gut is a sedentary lifestyle. Yes, not moving is harmful to your gut. We need to move. You hear me say it every week. You got to move. You got to move, and you got to eat. You got to eat properly. So how does this affect you? What are the signs? Really, the most common sign of an unhealthy gut is really no sign at all, because we don't associate a lot of our gut problems with other problems. And so the most common sign is really no sign at all. We normally think when our stomach is not feeling well, or we have upset stomach or an unhealthy gut, then we're going to feel bloating, gas, constipation, diarrhea, reflux. All that may be true, but likely those are just very acute symptoms, and having an unhealthy gut is more of a chronic symptom. And so issues like eczema, acne, mood swings, sugar cravings, inflammation, and I'm talking systemic inflammation. So inflammation is the cause of most, if not all, diseases. So pretty much any disease. Food sensitivities, brain fog, recurrent illnesses, allergies, headaches, hormone disruptions, muscle and joint achiness, forgetfulness. Those are all due to an unhealthy gut. So I'll give you an example of my story with gluten. I have arthritis in my back, and I have since I was a teenager, because I fell off of a horse, landed right on my tailbone, and I've had arthritis ever since. And I can keep that arthritis at bay if I work out. However, if I eat a big pasta meal, I love pasta. I don't eat it, but I love it. If I decide I'm going to splurge and eat a big pasta meal, I know that 2 nights later, I will not be able to sleep because the arthritis in my back will be bad enough to keep me awake. So when I eat a pasta meal, I just know that that's going to happen. The gluten, it attacks my joints so much that I know that I'm going to have back pain if I eat it. And I would imagine that there are a lot of you out there that have joint pain and body pain that don't equate it to the gluten or the pasta meal that you have, or the slice of bread that you have with your sandwiches. I want you to start tracking what you eat and see if you can put 2 and 2 together. And it doesn't even just have to be gluten. It can be anything, because a lot of us have different sensitivities to different things. And I also can do a lab on food sensitivities if you want to know what kinds of foods you are sensitive to or allergic to. I can give you a lab and get that figured out. So what do you do about it? What do you do about having an unhealthy gut? Well, we already know that diet and exercise, because we already know, I just said sedentary lifestyle can cause a leaky gut. So not doing anything can be unhealthy. So diet and exercise. Let's talk about the diet. Eat more fiber. Fruits and vegetables. Fruits and vegetables have all the things in it that we need, including the fiber. When we get constipated, we eat fiber, but fiber isn't just there to keep our bowels moving. That's the least of what they're supposed to do. The reason why our bowels move is because our gut is becoming healthy, and we have the peristalsis movement being able to move things through. It's not just because we are absorbing more water. That's the least of what fiber does. What are probiotics, prebiotics, and symbiotics? What's the difference? A probiotic is a live microorganism, and it's helpful to the host, and it adds the population of healthy microbes. So it's like planting a seed. Probiotic is a live microorganism. If you take probiotics, you have to wonder if that, like in the form of a pill, you have to wonder if that live microorganism is actually making it to your gut. It has to pass through the mouth, has to go through the acidic stomach, and then it has to get through the small intestine to get to the colon. So you have to wonder if probiotics in the form of a pill is really getting to where it's supposed to go. Maybe it is. And maybe you're taking a probiotic that has a good capsule around it that helps it get through the stomach acid. But a probiotic is a live microorganism, and it's helpful to the host. So that part's important because it is helpful to the host, which means we need those microbes there. It's working for us. We need them. We're dependent on them. A probiotic would help with digestion. It would help with immunity, because it's just helping with the health of the microbiome. Therefore, it's going to reduce inflammation. It's going to strengthen the gut barrier, that lining. It influences our neurotransmitter production like serotonin and GABA. It produces short-chain fatty acids, which have a lot of downstream effects. Having a healthy gut and all the microbiome there, the probiotics, are keeping your gut microbiome healthy. I want to take a second to share a helpful resource with you. I have a free health questionnaire designed to pinpoint the areas in your life that you need to focus on for optimal wellness. If you're interested, simply click the link in the show notes or visit heal-throughfood.com to access it. Now let's dive back into the show. So that's what a probiotic is. It's a live microorganism that is helpful to the host. It helps us. And we can get probiotics in the form of like anything fermented, really. Yogurt has probiotics, kefir, sauerkraut, kimchi, miso, tempeh, kombucha. It's really good to have fermented foods in your diet. That's what a probiotic is. So include fermented foods in your diet. So then what's a prebiotic? So a prebiotic is a non-digestible fiber that feeds your good bacteria. So a probiotic is like planting the seed, but a prebiotic is like adding the fertilizer. It's non-digestible fiber. And and that's the reason why you need to eat fruits and vegetables. There's a lot of different ones. Some are a better prebiotic, like garlic, onions, leeks, asparagus, green bananas, chicory root, Jerusalem artichokes, apples with the peel, oats, flaxseed. Those are all good prebiotics. But really, any fruits and vegetables that have fiber is going to be good for your gut microbiome. Get fiber into your diet because it's going to feed those probiotics. So what's a symbiotic? Symbiotic is just something that has both, probiotic and prebiotic. What else can we do about making our gut healthy? We can hydrate. We can drink a lot of water. We need to stay hydrated to keep everything healthy. We can get tested for what's going on in our stomach. There's a lot of different things we can test for to find out what kind of stomach issues you have. SIBO, SIFO, we can test for H. pylori. There's a lot of different things that you can test to see if your gut microbiome is healthy and then you'll know better what you can do for it. Exercise and movement. Movement is good for the GI system. Without movement, your GI system doesn't move, or not very well. Stress management, meditating, breathing exercises, journaling, whatever decreases your stress is going to help your gut. What else? Sleep. We need to sleep. If you don't sleep, you don't heal. If you don't get into that rest and digest, you are not going to be able to rest or digest, and that's not going to be good for your GI tract. What is a FODMAP diet? A FODMAP diet, or even a low FODMAP diet versus a high FODMAP diet. Well, it alleviates irritable bowel syndrome, but does it? If you think about FODMAP stands for fermentable, oligosaccharide, disaccharide, monosaccharide, and polyols. So that's what FODMAP stands for. It's easier just to say FODMAP. Why is that important? Well, so an oligosaccharide, a disaccharide, a monosaccharide, those are all like types of sugar. It just depends on if there's one molecule of sugar or two or more. and those break down, and they break down and ferment fairly easy because we know that bugs like sugar. They're highly fermentable foods. When they ferment easy, they cause gas, bloating, and discomfort. People will eat a low FODMAP diet to prevent the gas buildup. But why is that gas building up? And if you decrease your FODMAP, you are decreasing a lot of what you can eat, and that's not healthy. Being on a FODMAP diet for a long period of time is actually malnourishing. So that's just something to think about. If you're on a FODMAP diet, why is it that you are fermenting your food in your stomach, and are you getting malnourished? So it's really defeating the purpose. A FODMAP diet was only meant to be used for a short period of time until your gut heals. But if you're not doing anything to heal your gut, then you're not really doing anything but malnourishing. So that's my little spiel on a FODMAP diet. And then what is a peptic ulcer? Peptic ulcers are caused for many reasons, and usually when we think of ulcer, we think of stress. But H. pylori can cause peptic ulcers. If you are taking an antacid or anything to settle your stomach, you're ruining your stomach. I'm not really sure why doctors think that we overproduce stomach acid and that we need to take antacids. When we take an antacid, we are not able to break down protein, and then we become anemic, we become low in B12, and we can't break down that protein, which then means that we become protein deficient, and then we're not able to heal. It's such a cascade of effects when we take an antacid. And again, an antacid can help symptoms, but you're not resolving the problem of why your stomach is giving you problems to begin with. So solve that problem. And that could be H. pylori. So get tested for that and get off of those antacids. Don't go cold turkey on it because you're going to hate me. It's going to be miserable. But you got to figure out how to heal that. And taking an antacid for the rest of your life is not the answer, because you are then leading yourself into a lifestyle of inflammation. What else? Parasites. Get tested for parasites. We can pick up a parasite anywhere in our travels. We can pick up parasites anywhere, really. If you are not sure if you have a parasite, then get tested for it. Parasites can cause destruction in the body, and normally we don't test ourselves for parasites, and doctors don't think that that's a thing. So we end up chasing symptoms, and we take medication for headaches, we take medications for gut problems, we take medications for inflammation, when this whole time you had a parasite and the parasite's causing destruction and inflammation in your body. So get tested for it. That is all the information I have for you this week on gut health. There's so much involved in it, and every little thing I mentioned, I can do a whole podcast on parasites. I can do a podcast on gluten and antibiotics. But I hope I gave you enough information to at least get you thinking about what you can do to make your body healthy. That's the most important part. Is I want you just to start thinking about why eating healthy is going to be so much better for you. And of course, get a hold of me if you have any questions. There is references on type 3 diabetes. There's references on FODMAP in my show notes. And you can always get a hold of me at linda@heal-throughfood.com. And on my website, I have a link where you can set up a 15-minute consultation with me for questions. And I hope that you are staying healthy, California. Talk to you next week. Thank you for joining me today. I hope you learned something new. Health care and treatment should focus on being proactive and preventative, emphasizing the importance of addressing the root cause of a disease or illness. While the U.S. has an excellent trauma medicine system, helping patients when problems arise, our goals should be to prevent disease before they happen. That's why this podcast is so important to me. If you're needing further guidance or have questions on a particular matter, you can find my contact information in the show notes, where you can set up a 15-minute consultation. I also recommend you adding a functional nutritionist, a functional medicine practitioner, and a physical therapist to your healthcare team. This podcast reflects my personal opinions based on extensive research and education. It is not intended for medical diagnosis or treatment and should never replace the advice from your doctor or other healthcare professionals. To continue providing this free information, I rely on your support. Follow, subscribe, like, and share this podcast with your family and friends, or on social media. Don't forget to turn on your notifications to stay updated whenever I have a new episode released. Educating you and empowering you to take back your health is my ultimate goal. By gathering knowledge and implementing small but impactful changes, you can reclaim your well-being. This is a journey, not a quick fix, so be kind to yourself, and I'll be there to help. You got this.